Well, it is 8 o'clock. Good morning, everyone. We'll call the meeting.
This meeting is being recorded.
Thank you. This meeting is called to order for November 23rd, 2021. We're waiting for a couple more people. Tammy, I can't hear you still, but when we do the roll calls and stuff, maybe we'll get a thumbs up. I can see you, so thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just at the outset, I missed this at the last meeting, but our chairman was recently promoted at the Air National Guard to Lieutenant Colonel, just recent, so congratulations.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. Item number 1, we're going to approve the meeting minutes for the October 12th and 27 and November 9 meetings.
Motion.
As published.
Second.
Thank you. We got a motion and a second. Let's roll call vote.
Engen.
Aye.
Cosgrove.
Aye.
Capitan.
Aye.
Lind. Lind.
Aye. Thank you. That is an affirmative from Tammy there. Number 2, approve the airport vouchers for $112,294.99.
Motion.
That's published on page pretty deep here, so we're there. Did you get a motion?
Motion.
Motion, thank you.
I'll second again.
Thank you, Jim. Roll call vote.
Engen.
Aye.
Cosgrove.
Aye.
Capitan.
Aye.
Lind. Lind.
Aye. Those stand approved. Number 3, approve the individual vouchers Alpha through Echo. Alpha is Mead and Hunt. Mead and Hunt for Bravo. Meineke Johnson for Charlie. Northern Plains Mechanical for Delta. And Rickard Electric for Echo.
Motion.
Thank you.
Capitan seconds.
Thank you. And roll call vote.
Engen.
Aye.
Cosgrove.
Aye.
Capitan.
Aye.
Lind. Lind.
Right. Approved as published. Number 4, received an update on BE Airport Property LLC hangar ground lease effective 1 May 2021. So this is a little back paperwork.
Yeah, so in your packet, you received the full lease that the chairman and I signed back on April 13th at one of our board meetings. Stacy had worked extensively with the attorney for, it was originally presented to the Airport Authority on January 12th of 2021 for Dakota Allied Properties LLC to construct a maintenance hangar. And this is a hangar that it's Mike Bollinger and the group. Paul Johnson from Cityscapes was the representative. And this is the hangar that Bemidji Aviation is subleasing through what at that time was called Dakota Allied Properties LLC. And the Airport Authority concurred to draw up the lease agreement at that meeting with the estimated ground square footage that they would need, the size of the hangar, and what the terms would be. They'd ask for a 40-year term. So from that meeting up until, I think, April 12th or the morning of April 13th, we did get the lease agreements, and Eric and I signed them, but what happened is I didn't put it on the agenda for the full board approval. The hangar is completed. They have a certificate of occupancy. They moved in a couple of weeks ago. But what we would need to do is approve the lease agreement with BE Airport Properties. It changed. I assume BE stands for Bollinger Enterprises Airport Properties. Retroactive back to an effective date of May 1st of 2021. So that's my oversight to not getting to the full board when I was uploading documents for the Ike Bailey. And looked and said, geez, the chair and I signed it. They needed it signed so they could get their building permit so they could start. And I didn't bring it back before the full board, so that's my error in that. So,
Mr. Chair, the lease is, and Stacy, this lease is concurrent with the similar UPS and FedEx. And
Correct.
It's okay. All right. I move we accept.
Yes, we very much want them to be a
Yeah.
tenant for us. So yeah, this is just back paperwork, finishing up the procedural part that we cleared in finishing. So
they ended up leasing from us, if I can get it here. The estimate at the time was 40,000 square feet. They're actually leasing 40,965 square feet. Their annual rent is $10,241.25. at the 25 cent per square foot rate that we've adopted for the commercial rates. And then they're every 5 years, the language for escalators is in the lease, the same as it is for corporate air, FedEx, UPS, and others in a similar situation in the cargo area. So my oversight, apologize for that, but your approval today would get that approved retroactive to May 1, 2021.
As I said, motion.
Motion, okay, and Tammy, you want to second it? Yep, there, she's got the typing up there. I have a motion and a second, roll call vote, please.
Hagan.
Aye.
Cosgrove.
Aye.
Capitan.
Aye.
Lind.
Aye. They are approved, thank you very much. Item 5, received communication from SP Plus regarding the updated parking and transportation study from August 4 and 5 of this year.
Yeah, so this is provided for your information. I guess you can accept it. I don't know if you have any questions on it. It's starting to put together quite a bit of data that goes back to 2017, so you can see some trends in the airport parking usage. Park car, dropped off, taxi, TNC, hotel shuttle, rental car return, and other. It's starting to get some history here, so we're tracking how we're doing in terms of getting more people to park at the airport, or if it's their desire to use a taxi, TNC, hotel shuttle, or others. So I don't know if you have any questions. This is just a tool that we've started to use. SP Plus is doing this at some other airports that they're managing as well. They reference Fargo and the Sioux Falls data often. It's just as a comparative to another airport that's doing a similar study. So if anybody has any questions or comments.
I guess I have a question.
Yeah.
Sioux Falls right now is building a ramp, correct?
Well, they're in the process of getting bids. Yes.
Are the data for that is pretty timely. Do they have estimates, per space estimates that they're disclosing?
Only what you can find in their minutes based on estimated costs. At the time that they do open bids, and I'll have to go online to find out when they're opening bids, or I can call down there and find out, but we'll see. It's the costs have escalated significantly for what they're doing.
I thought this was interesting, through the pandemic, it was, our customers who are parking cars are very, very steady between the low 30s and very low 40% of people, and then but the TNC, the Ubers and Lyft and so forth had dropped off quite a bit. That will return. It was down from 8% down to 5% in the 2-year period, and then the rental cars had gone from 17% down to 11%. So I thought that was an interesting statistic that the rental cars had dropped so much, because they had typically been in the high teens, low 20s kind of thing, and they had dropped all the way down to 11. So anyway, good data. It's always good to know where our customers are coming from, and parking is our major revenue stream. So how we can make a better product for our customers, I think, is very important to find out. So,
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Rick, I believe there was one article that 1,000 spaces in their ramp is about 50 million. So
Yes.
Running about 50,000. And again, if you break that down, 50,000 and 25, 30-year bond, 3% interest is, 100% occupancy, $7-8 a day in revenue to amortize that. Now, the argument is that 100% occupancy, 20%, but even at those big numbers, I was surprised to see that it still had the potential to have some cash flow ability.
Right.
So,
They take, those parking ramp figures take a lot of things into assumption. You're assuming that you're going to get the occupancy that you're going to get. You're assuming that you're going to be able to raise the rates and people are going to use it. And those are pretty big assumptions, because if you throw the thing up and people don't use it, then your forecast was off. So,
any financial model, the assumptions are always a difficult part. But I was just surprised when I looked at that it didn't seem as out of balance as it could. Now, are they going to get it built for $50 million? Who knows? But $50,000 spot, even at 50% occupancy, you need $15 a day.
right.
So it's just something as we go forward, and I think Sioux Falls is a great one to study and see what happens there. But it feels so top-heavy when you first look at it, $50 million in a parking ramp, that you'd have to charge outrageous prices. That doesn't, there's no model there. That's just debt service on it. So there's other maintenance and things like that. And the other thing then is in your assumptions too, is that if everything did go away, what are the alternative uses for it? I see we're storing buses in the back now, so.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. So what's going on, we're just parking them for storage?
They do come and go, so these are added. We were up to like 11, down to like 4 or 5, now we're back up to maybe a dozen. So it must be a company that's just staging them here, flying drivers in and out, and we're not really sure. It just kind of started about a couple of weeks ago. So.
But they're paying parking rates to do it?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Interesting.
They're paying the park rates.
Yeah, I mean, and you start with the futurists thinking about what do you do with an old parking ramp? Well, if we're going to have all electric cars, we're also going to have all robotic maintenance, and so parking garages become perfect overnight staging, charging, and repair stations for electric vehicles.
Sure. I promise there's more to come on this topic.
Okay.
Okay, so we just received the communication. We don't need to do any action on this, no voting or anything like that. Is there any more discussion or any conversation anybody would like to have? Tammy?
She
Just
commented,
kidding.
yeah, she just said great study. I think it's interesting to look at the PNC. So.
Okay.
Thanks, Tammy.
All right, if there's no other conversation, let's move on to item 6. Received communication from Rivera Nexus requesting a 1-year extension on their east side terminal lease.
Yeah, they've been renting space on the second floor of the East Terminal for some time, and they requested just here on November 18th a 1-year extension for that, 3% escalator. I think they're at 984 square foot now for the space. It's around 700 some square feet of space. So your approval would be in order.
Motion.
Thank you.
10 seconds.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Roll call vote, please.
Engen,
Aye.
Cosgrove,
All right.
Capitan,
Aye.
Lind.
Aye. Thank you. I forgot to ask if there was any discussion, but we all voted yes. I apologize. Okay, number 7. Continue discussion regarding the ground rental rates for the South GA, North GA commercial areas, regions of the airports.
Okay, Mr. Flaxbarth is here, but the update that you kind of requested from the last meeting was to look at some regional airports in terms of what they're doing, and as you can see, it's kind of all over the place in terms of what other airports do, kind of in our competitive area, if you will. I didn't really reach out to like Bismarck or Minot or others because I don't think someone's going to drive from here to those locations to probably hangar their aircraft. It's going to be probably within this regional area. So I don't know if this gives you any insight in terms of, our 8 cents a square foot that we're charging right now in our South GA, 10 cents up in the North GA, and then their commercial rate's currently at 25 cents. If you feel there's any justification for that. Now, Rick and a team looked at this, and of course, Rick hasn't been here for a while. I don't know if you have any updates or if any questions for Rick on what your thoughts are. Go ahead.
What we did was we basically said, all right, so if you're inside the general aviation, whether it be south, north, somewhere within the footprint of Fargo Hector Airport, how important is it to have that ability, even though you're going to be under the control of FAA rules? Okay. So with that being said, can you go across the road on County Road 20 and find a private lot and just say, all right, well, we're going to put down some class 5, all we need is some open area, secure fence. What is that going to be? So again, obviously it wouldn't be a hangar or anything like that, but if you're looking to compare apples to apples, well, we did find one lease across the road that was like around $1 a square foot per year. And we said, all right, so how does that compare to what the airport is charging, but with the understanding that what they're doing out there may not have anything to do with the airport directly or maybe even indirectly, okay? what we're trying to do is just find those comparables. And so in our discussion with that and looking at where the rates are today, where they've come since, what was the last one, 1995?
Well,
Late 90s?
The last time that was adjusted for the GA,
Right,
probably in the mid-90s, late 90s.
late
yeah.
90s.
Yeah.
Okay, so 20 some years. Here we are, and just, we said, all right, so let's take a look at a couple of possibilities. Could we build in an escalator to bring those rates up to where they would be in comparison to some of the other regional airports? But then again, are we really comparing apples to apples? Because obviously, if they're looking at Hector and the property on the footprint of the airport, there's a reason for that. They want to do business here, okay? That may not have anything to do with any of the other airports at all. So you can't really make that as, say, all right, so how do we put that into an adjustment? Or do we even need to do that? And that's what Sean and I were talking about. Does there need to be a catch-up with rates, or do we just simply say, all right, let's take and start today and look at the next, 5-year, 10, 5-year increment, kind of like what we had done 20 some years ago, and said, okay, here's how we're going to do it, and then gradually bring those rates up, as each section, whether it be the south aviation area, the north aviation, the commercial, which obviously has taken off immensely here in the last couple of years. And maybe that's something that, you look at and say, all right, maybe that's our growth. Maybe, we're at 25 currently.
Right.
So maybe that's the one we concentrate on and say, all right, let's take a look at that. What do we use as our barometer though? So, we can use government, valuations in that and say, all right, let's go by, this estimate number, and we say, all right, based on that percentage, gross national or gross general, what
CPI?
CPI, thank you. So in that and using that and saying, all right, so is that the percentage that we want to use to set the rate after, each 5-year increment, or maybe it's a 1 year, or whatever length of term that you guys want to use. And I think on the commercial side, that's already built into the contracts, the way I understand it, that
is.
they can be changed as often as yearly or every 5 years.
The only thing I'll say on the commercial side is that rate started back when Airborne Express started their facility here back in 1990s. And board member Tracy Myers got together with 3 commercial realtors, and they did some analysis and said, okay, start at 16 cents a square foot. And then every 5 years it went up 3 cents, 16, 19, 22, and now we're still at 25, which we got to here just a couple of years ago. And it hasn't been adjusted since that time. The other part is that, and this is where Floyd Berkeley, if you remember, old city assessor, Ben Hushka, Marv Heaton in the assessor's office, and now we with Michael Spolansky, they always looked at the airport leases being very restrictive because we have a required reversionary clause in our leases. So if you are given a ground lease today, just the one that you looked at here would be Airport Properties, at the end of the term, the hangar is ours, if you so choose to exercise that. Or they have the option to remove the hangar and return the ground to the condition that it's in. The assessor's office always looked at that as obviously an extreme negative. Someone spends a few $100,000 building a structure and they're not going to own it at the end of the lease. That's what this board has done, and your predecessors, is they've always given like 5-year extensions. There's a few exceptions now in recent years where we've given 10-year extensions based on the condition of the hangar. So we haven't fully enacted what's a true reversionary clause, and that's a very hot topic around the country with the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association and other airports as far as implementing reversionary clauses. Just Google it and you'll see it's a very controversial deal. But this board has always thought of just extending the leases as long as the hangar is in an aesthetically acceptable condition, do 5-year extensions at the end of the term. So hence, that's why our rates have been, when you try and compare off-airport commercial rate to an on-airport, It's because of the reversionary clause. So I don't know how that factors into what we're doing, but go ahead.
And I think that also builds into the length of the lease. Stacy is usually what, 20 year? Is that what our normal length has been on
20 and 30 are very
20 to
common.
30?
For initial
Okay.
builds.
Yeah, some
I
are
think
40.
when we sold the guard building to the sheriff's office, at that time we looked into it, Century Code said we could go up to 99
99,
years.
that's correct.
So, I mean, obviously there's room there, but you can't, lock in a rate obviously at for that length of time. So all I did in this case was just try to point out that, all right, is it time to either build in an escalator, play catch up, or just say, all right, start today and then take in 5-year increments, and where do you want to be? Where should we set those rates at for the next 20 years? Kind of what they did 20 some years ago, but now it's just time to reorganize that and take a look at those rates.
So in the lease that you looked at today with the airport properties and corporate air and FedEx, I think even with the county, there's a built-in escalator option like every 5 years based on CPI. In the majority of private hangars, this board has the option to increase the rent on every anniversary date. So if it's a May 1st lease, every May 1st throughout that lease, you have the option to increase the rent. And that's how, I guess, my predecessor and others did it with the assessor's office and others. So we'll just have the option every year to be able to increase the rate. That's kind of where we've been with private hangars. As you can see in the East Terminal building, we do a 3% escalator every time.
Every year.
Right.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
For those long-term leases, Stacy, they're attributable to property tax as well, and for the long-term leases on the property?
I would say no.
What do you suggest?
So individual tenants that have a duration lease of greater than 20 years are subject to property tax on the physical
there's
property?
the North Dakota leasehold interest tax, yes, that all of them pay property taxes. So regardless of what we charge, the other political subdivisions get whatever
Okay.
the assessor says the property's worth, and they all get their
And that's
share.
specifically set out in the lease.
Yeah, yeah.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Rick, do you have commercial sales comparables? We do have the restrictions, the airport property, but do you have some comps that you can kind of look at? Because, again, as we discussed last time, it's, you can provide incentives and you can move to use it as a way to work with or attract companies or different things like that. But it would help to have a baseline.
It's just, you have no idea what would happen.
So it's, and NDSU has the same situation. You have very restrictive covenants, you have reversion clauses. And when they look at leasing property, the first thing they do is look at recent comparables, see what they can find, and apply a capitalization rate to that of 8%. And that's their starting point. If they want to provide incentives, each time you do that, you can go back and start and then discount off it. When you just jump in at a number and say, here, this is what we're going, you really don't have that basis. So.
And that's a problem, John, as far as trying to do that comparable, because even nearby, you look at some of the NDSU Foundation property leases, such as McDonald's across from the Fargo Dome, that entire strip mall all the way over to the Holiday gas station before you get to Fargo North. All of those are land leases from NDSU. I have copies of those leases. I've looked at them, but unfortunately, it's not apples to apples. That's the hardest thing. And so,
well, and don't let perfect get in the way of a solution. and of course, nothing's going to be exactly comparable. But if you look, you'll see that there's a hotel located on University. It's actually state land,
right.
Leased to the research park. Then there's also John Deere. There's Apario. So they are comparing and saying, okay, we can build here with the restrictions and everything else, or we can look privately. And so when you look at those private comp sales, you just have some basis to work from. And so each time you do that, if it's changed, you can kind of adjust from it. And then again, if this board decides they want to provide incentives, you know what the incentive is that you're providing.
And we have had businesses from the tech park look at property just south of here, out by the radar of the alfalfa field. John Deere that finally built and purchased property out on 19th Avenue looked here very intently. So we've had that. In fact, they've drawn up a building plan out there and so forth, but they chose to stay at the university, which is great for the university, and not here. But that's a whole nother topic out there as far as trying to find a developer to get that property out there developed for us for a non-aeronautical use. But that's a different conversation for a different day.
But the long-term leases don't necessarily have to be a deterrent. So if you get 65-year leases, 50-year buildings, but there has to be other reasons for them to want to be subject to the restrictions of either the airport and the university. But again, just having a starting point, saying comparable, flat, undeveloped land in commercial zoning would be selling for $5 a square foot and 8% capitalization rate, should be charging 40 cents a square foot in ground lease per year.
What is our ground lease per year?
8 cents in the South GA, 10 cents in the North GA, and then our commercial rate's at 25.
Okay, so your comparables are Moorhead for the area are 10 cents per square foot with 3% escalator. You have Holly is just straight amounts, and Detroit Lakes is as high as 22 cents for a brand new hangar per square foot, and 18 cents a square foot for older hangars. So those are our comps, and then Wahpeton is 8 cents a square foot, so they're the same as us. So the question is, do you, with this information, is there any adjustments that we would like to make? Does anybody have any ideas? Or do you leave it as is?
Well, I think at your existing leases, you have to honor it and just make sure that the escalators get added to the lease each year. And those things sometimes sort of slip away from you. And then if the calculation is required of the consumer product price index, that it's done and it's applied each year and going forward.
And John, would you suggest, like here in Moorhead, they do a 3% annual increase, and at some point with an annual increase, regardless of CPI, maybe you're going to be over market rate? Is it better to put in languages in terms of how you get to the rate as opposed to putting in a flat, it's a 3% or 5%, or what's your recommendation on that?
Well, it's a negotiation with the building owner. If they're comfortable with a flat rate, you just have to take a look at it. Predicting future values is, if you can do that,
Exactly.
it's always, but nobody's doing just flat rates. There's always some escalator clause. Some will use and tie it to an index so that it becomes reflective of what happens each year. They'll specify one of the various consumer product or price indexes. It's just anticipating what should happen. And again, if something, believe me, if something gets way out of line and the businesses feel that the rate has gone way too high, they will certainly come back to this board and say, let's fix this.
So Bismarck,
They won't come back and say, geez, you're really undercharging us here.
back in August, I received a communication from Tim Thorson at the Bismarck Airport. Their CIP increase was 5.4%.
Well, the one thing about CPI until the last 2 years, it was flat for what, Rick, 10, 15 years. I mean,
Efficiency.
there wasn't anything adjusting on that, so that happens too.
And to negotiate with one hangar owner to get a rate doesn't quite work because the FAA requires us to treat all the same in a similar situation. So it'd have to be all private aircraft owners. So it'd have to be a general consensus from the board. So if we're at 8 in the South GA, can we justify going to 10 or 11? If we're at 10 cents in the North GA, can we justify going to 11 or 12 or something of that nature? just so everybody in the same situation is the same.
Well, and again, I just think that if you set the rates based on sort of comparable sales, and they're not going to be perfect, but commercially zoned property, and if you do, all I'm saying, you can treat everybody the same, but if there is incentive programs that come into play, then you know what your discount is coming off of. That, you know, if the market rate tells you it should be 40 cents and you're going to do a 20-cent lease, then you know you're provided an incentive 25. And you might be able then, to, if you do that, to negotiate back and say, okay, we'll give you the 25-cent discount for the first 5 years to help you establish yourself here, and then it's going to revert back to the regular rates. Or, you know, it's all a negotiation, and it's all subject to existing regs, rules and regs, but it just gives you a basis to start from. Otherwise, you're just kind of putting your finger up in the air and checking the wind direction and saying, here's a good number.
Well, I think, John, when we looked at all this, what we were trying to do is just make sure we had some continuity so that it was, you know, standard across the board. It wasn't where, you know, we were targeting, you know, this hangar owner or property, you know, developer, you know, one way or the other. So just so that there was some sort of standard rate that we were looking at, and then deciding, you know, where the next steps were going to be and how we got there. So obviously the CPI is the easiest one to use because it's the most common.
Okay. Any other input, I guess, for Rick and I to consider as we formulate a plan over the next few weeks or months here?
I think, Mr. Chair, I think one thing to consider is the current quality of the property as well. I know the South GA over there, that's not the greatest structure in the world, and age of the property and maintenance that needs to be done in, around, or out front with the concrete is important too to consider. And just don't discount that, because there's a substantial amount of money that needs to go into that to bring it up to a standard. I wouldn't want to charge somebody for something that they're not getting the benefit of.
Yeah, there are some very, very nice hangars in the South GA, and then there are some that need some help. I think most of the private hangars are in very, very good shape that I have seen. The T hangars are in pretty sad shape. They're the snowplow hit the side of the building. There's a big hole in it, stuff like that. So there's some money that needs to go in there. And what I want to avoid is you know, we have everything from Challenger jets down there and Citations down to somebody with a very small Cessna aircraft who is, you know, just able to afford that. So I don't want to push people out, but I also don't want to. I don't want to just keep it the same just to keep it the same. So it's a definite balancing act too. So. Anyway, open for more more discussion if you would think that we need to make some changes on the rates. I know there is some discussion at the City Commission that thinks that we need to change the rates, but if we are in line and everybody's comfortable, I'm fine just leaving it the way it is as well. So more discussion on this, Sean, or what would you like to do?
No, we're fine. Just it's a good discussion and gives us some good direction.
Okay. Like I said, Moorhead is at 10 cents a square foot. They're a local one. I wish that West Fargo had a price per square foot on their private hangars, but that doesn't seem to give anything. It's just $500 a year. And I think that is pretty close to what we're doing with our private hangars here when I look at the financials. Mm-hmm. Most of the guys who that I know who have private hangars down there are paying roughly around the same, if not a little bit more. So anyway, any more discussion? All right, moving on. I gotta find my
East Economy lot?
Okay, item number 8, discuss the proposed East Economy parking lot project and how we're going to proceed.
Yeah, so you remember the drawing, the concept of the East Economy parking lot, which is south of the tower, and I guess Jeff is here with Mead and Hunt, looking for some direction if this is a project that the airport authority would like to move forward with. We need to get started on the plans and specs and so forth, because the lead time for geotextile fabric, I understand, is still 4 to 6 months. storm sewer pipe is still in that 6 to 7 month range, so you basically have to be ordering soon if you want to have a parking lot done next summer to be available for the winter of 2023, 2024. So Jeff's just looking for some direction. The thought is that this east economy lot may not be needed if we move the exit plaza. You made the decision to move the exit plaza, which is going to create a net around 100 some new stalls where the current exit plaza is. Those spots wouldn't be available until sometime late next fall, probably based on the construction schedule. So what is your desire? Do you want an east lot, or do you want to delay it until next summer to maybe do the following year? It's kind of, what is your desire?
Discussion on the floor?
Mr. Chair, I think one of the concerns is always going to be construction materials, and that's not going to go away for the next half a decade or a decade. And so I think the fact that we have the capability to put the facility out there, it's something we need to look at and pursue. We don't know how travel is going to come back, if it's going to escalate faster. We hope it does, and if it does, we need to have facilities in lieu of making changes to the exit plaza and adding space within the lot that we currently have.
I agree. Mr. Cosgrove, do you have any opinions?
Just a question, how often do we see capacity in the parking?
Last year before quarantine, we needed to park cars out there. We were completely out of spaces here. And was that the first time, or was it had that happened
We've
before?
done it a number of times over the past few years, and it's not a lot of cars. We put cars on this hard surface first. We have all the signage in place to direct over to the parking. The greatest majority of them do pay, so SP Plus will get them over there. And then it's this large grass area. We plow the snow off and make some rows. And you recall maybe the most we had out there was 20, 30 cars, maybe at the most. After this area was fairly well full. And
I think, well, last time I think it was more. There was actually quite a few that spring.
yeah.
I think the other thing to keep in mind, if we do terminal expansion, we're going to need parking for employees, and
Yeah. So
and that's
as we
something,
add
you know,
on to the
think 3 years
terminal
down the road.
in this direction, it's going to possibly take some of these parking spots or readjust the parking anyway. So we'll probably need some hard surface parking. Of course, we can always work out a program or a plan or agreement with the parking lot. Obviously, they manage it, we control it, to park employees out here if we need to during the summer or whatever during construction. So we do have options to keep them on a hard surface with passes and so forth.
But how many days a year did that happen?
Oh, it maybe goes for like a month to maybe up to 2 months at the most. I mean, it's like building the church for Easter Sunday.
Yeah.
But once we get through that February, March timeframe, then we don't have a need for it. That's been our history. So I would only foresee it being used for its overflow during potentially from Christmas until the end of March. That's the window that we have where we get into peak areas. But more so in that February, March timeframe is where we really see the need. And you're going to see it empty and we would have the ability to close it down, so we can maximize the use of the west economy lot over here. Just it's one less thing for SP Plus to monitor. Could be a seasonal lot.
Just one thing too, just to give you a perspective, the way we have the plan set up right now, that east economy lot is 250 stalls. That was before the decision was made to move the exit plaza. Obviously that could be resized, and then the exit plaza area will be 100 to 125 new stalls, give or take.
So you could downsize the lot as well. I mean, prep it for expansion, but you could put in 100 spots now or something of that nature, 125 spots. Knowing that you're going to gain some spots in this location by next fall, you can do that. One of the things too in the expansion is that our access gate, we have 2 access gates to get onto the airfield. One is over here, and this is a backup gate here. That's going to be eliminated in the expansion, so the plan that you've seen before is to put another access road for the airfield. This would be a primary access to the airfield. This was through a gate here, a road and then a gate to go out onto this perimeter to get out to the airfield. So that's probably in the plan regardless of what you decide with the parking lot. We would need that access at some point here in the not too distant future.
I guess one thing too, you know, when we do that overflow lot and there's no revenue control per se, you know, it's really hard, you know, we don't know who, I mean, car rental lot sends them over there and they try to charge them, but we don't know who's in or out, so there's potential loss of revenue when that does happen. So.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I think the fact that we're going to work on expansion of the east side of the terminal, there's going to be displacement there. And the structure of this lot, the base is what? The surface?
Bituminous.
Okay. So this is not a 8 inches of concrete lot. This is a pretty simple structure.
You doing asphalt?
Yep.
What's the lifespan of that?
20 years, I would say, you know, if it's properly maintained.
My opinion, you all love my opinion, of course, so I'll give it to you. Is, you know, when I talk to people and I say that we have the West Economy lot, and everyone's like, "You do?" I had no idea that was there. I think if we put an East Economy lot over there, I think it would get used quite a bit. And with the inflation that is rampant right now, it's never going to be cheaper than it is today. So I think if we did it, it's only going to be more expensive if we wait a few more years. I believe that we need the expansion to do it. I think it's something that we should invest in. So.
Well, Mr. Chair, also if we do something with covered parking or a ramp, that
Mhm.
displacement as well will need substitution.
Yes.
And so it's inevitable, I think.
I see Tammy shaking her head yes as well. So, Mr. Capitan, do you have any comments that you would like to make? Okay, nothing heard.
Mr. Chairman, just one other question.
Yes.
Anything been looked at in encouraging off-premise parking, shuttles, private sector, anything there?
You know, well, maybe within the last 10, 15 years, I mean, there was some talk of staging vehicles at the Fargo Dome and shuttling them. I mean, Rob and I had spoke about that. That was one option that was looked at many years ago. But we do have a number of hotels in the area that some do a park and stay. Others will allow people to, you know, stage a vehicle. So we do see some of that, and that's reflected in the study that you had. But that's the only one I can recall is a conversation with the Fargo Dome.
It's a unique situation where the airport's hemmed in by state institutions. Typically, you see private sector parking available with shuttles. But again, I just cringe each time as slowly but surely we're hard surface covering all the property available here. Long term, that's not a good solution.
Agreed. Does anyone want to make a motion to approve building the East Economy lot?
I would move, Mr. Chair, we move forward with the East Economy lot, subject to spaces between 150 and 250.
Okay. Any other discussion on that? Do I have a second? Tammy seconded. Thank you.
10 seconds.
Thank you. All right. Roll call vote.
Engen,
Aye.
Cosgrove,
Aye.
Capitan,
Aye.
Lynn. No, we can't hear you yet. Yeah, thumbs up, sorry. Lynn.
She gave a thumbs up, and aye for Lind. Okay. Approved. Item 9. Thank you everyone for the discussion on that. Item 9, receive and approve the MMA employee handbook.
Well, thanks again to Tammy for all of her hours putting this together. Joan did spend the weekend going through looking at the reformatting of the document. It changed. So what I had Pro do, and Chris Burns is on, is start each section at the top of a page, and wherever the language for that section panned out, if it was a partial page, so be it, start the next section at the top of the page and go from there. Joan did send out some of the changes that were put in from there. We will get Thanksgiving Day off, so we added that to page 10. That was an oversight from before. Page 10, non-exempt employees will be paid at a rate of 2.5 times their regular hourly rate for hours worked during the holiday shift. There's a typo on page 37. Page 45, the word unpaid and then paid breaks, just a clarification there. Page 46, the following month of their employment is when benefits start. So if someone's hired on January 2nd, their benefits start on February 1st. We clarified the tuition reimbursement. Basically, it's the city's policy that was edited. And then we also inserted an ethics policy. I forget what pages those are on, but they're in the rules of conduct. Section 9, and we basically took the city's, the current policy that we're under for ethics and inserted that there as well. So a lot of work on this. As we said, it's a living document. It's subject to change at any time, but your approval of this today would be another check on the transition list that we can adopt.
Okay. Thank you, John, for putting all those together on that email. I'm not just checking my phone, it's on an email. Any further discussion on the employee manual? Yeah, go ahead, Tammy. Oh, you would like to approve the employee manual?
I will second.
Okay. Tammy approved the publishing of the employee manual as published, and Mr. Engen seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Engen.
Aye.
Cosgrove.
Aye.
Capitan.
Aye.
Lind.
Aye. Thank you very much for all your work on that.
It's a big deal.
Okay, item 10, airport transition update.
Okay, so Pro Resources is here today to do the onboarding of the employees. They're starting at what time, Joan? So every employee's got a...
Presentation from 9:30 to 10:30 and then one-on-one appointments.
Yeah, so
starting
we'll get
until
everybody
10.
onboarded into the system. We finalized the paperwork for Mission Square, the 457 deferred comp plan. That is all set up. We did receive communication from Mike Redlinger that we are allowed to keep 4 of the phone numbers. 1501, 1538, our fax number, 8168, the information center, and then our fire department, main fire department number. Let's see, S&L computer was out and they completed the conversion of our email, so we're off the city's email, and there was some issues with that for about a week, but we got that all sorted out with the city and S&L and the state. So we've got our emails. And then they updated, Darren, was it our virus control? So we're on S&L's virus and
APC, they put the virus control on.
Virus control, malware, and all of that. So we have that, and so the transition's going. Phone system wise, we've got the stuff that we had mentioned at the last time, getting our phone system. They were out and demoed some phones, so we know what we're going to for phones. And when they're going to start that, Darren?
Pretty soon.
Pretty soon. Okay. So that's all we've got on the update to. I think on December 1st, we've got another co-meeting with the city, Redlinger and Kent Costin, HR, just to review the list that you've all seen, and a lot of things are checked off on there, so we're doing pretty well. There's still a few financial transition things that we'll work out with Kent and the staff as we get closer to that December 26th date is our final payroll date, and then starting with Crow on December 27th. The use of our credit cards that we have issued now through the city, we're going to use those through about mid-December, so that on December 28th, all our final credit card processing will be done with the one that's issued by the city, and then we'll transition to our own credit card through the same company, the Bank of Montreal, that we've been using with the city for some years. So any questions or comments? Or
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Sean, have we gotten from the city an estimate and a timeline to get the pension liability acknowledged?
No, we do not, and that's on our list again to find out when the actuary is going to provide that data. I believe it's been requested. I don't believe that they will move forward with that analysis until the final payrolls for 2021 are processed. That's my understanding, but I will get clarification on that.
How many times have we asked for that? How many times have we asked for that?
A few.
Half a dozen.
Good.
Cyber insurance? Do we get anything back on the cyber insurance? that we
No
spoke
quotes
about?
have been provided yet. Northstar is doing that for us through AIG, nor do we have anything back on our liability insurance. Typically, the liability insurance, they will wait until early to mid-December to give us that. We're always approving that, like at our last meeting in December, what this liability insurance renewal will be. I I'll find out from Mark LePage today when he expects a quote on cyber insurance.
Okay, any other questions? Moving on, item 11, receive update for the MOU, City of Fargo and the Fargo Police Department.
Don't have much to update. I did exchange emails with Eric Johnson yesterday, and the proposed amended MOU with the city and the airport has gone through a staff level review, and there are comments and proposed changes there, and those will come through Eric. He indicated, however, that the city commission would want to be involved in what comes back to us, and I'm hoping to get that timeline today because we're getting close to this deadline. And obviously,
TikTok.
I know. With regard to the amended MOU with Fargo Police Department to provide services out here in conjunction with the TSA, Rick had requested some additional language to that. I passed that on to Nancy Morris. The chief doesn't feel that information needs to be included based upon the type of agreement that we have. This is for the police presence as it relates to what's required by the TSA. So I guess what I would propose is as we go to finalize the amended City of Fargo MOU, that we might include some language that clarifies that. And that would be, as an example, police are coming on airport property because someone's crashed through the fence, kind of thing.
That was a mutual aid situation, right?
Yeah.
And Rick, you wanted to spell out that mutual aid wouldn't be charged to the airport for their services?
Well, Mr. Chair, I think that since we're refining all these documents and making things clear, it was probably simple language added that it should be understood that our agreement with the Fargo Police Department for the benefit of their work here with the TSA, FAA, or whatever other agency we've had to agree to have them here for is unique and not subject to the same billing rules, so we don't get billed for that incident, and just clarify that.
Okay.
And so from my perspective, since the chief was not in agreement with that approach, that we could do the same thing through the amended MOU with the city.
Okay.
To spell that out, that this agreement with TSA and the Fargo Police Department is different than the mutual aid agreement that we have with the city of Fargo to provide services out here.
Okay. You're good? Any other discussion on that? I'm happy. Okay. Yeah. Tammy says, ask the city when they will get it to you. So with the actuary stuff, is that what you're talking about, Tammy? This is the way that, this is the way to get the closeout on the deadline.
Well, and I intend to reach out to Eric. Like, we weren't able to connect yesterday, so I'll reach out to him this morning and just say, you need to give me a concrete deadline.
Okay.
Because I don't want to be sitting on Christmas Eve looking for signatures. Selfish of me, I know.
I agree with you.
I think we'll get there.
Okay. Anything else? All right, moving on to item 12, discuss the monthly airport financial report process.
So I guess the practice that we have used for as long as I've been here and before is that each month the board members are emailed the financial reports that come out of the city's accounting system that we use. You get a revenue report, you get an expense report, and if provided, you get a trial balance, and normally we'd be getting all three. Those are emailed out for your review. You see where all the revenues are, you see the aggregate of all of the expenses, and then you see the trial balance. At each meeting, you approve the vouchers. So when it's the aggregate expense reports that you see here, this is broke out by individual vouchers for the operations and maintenance account, and then you see the ABCDs that you see on the agenda that come out of the improvement fund. Do you want to change that? Is there something that you want to change? This has been the practice request of all of your predecessors for, I don't know how long, John, it's longer than I've been here. This is how we've done it. If there's something that you want changed, we will, I believe, have the ability maybe to change some of the reports in the new accounting system. The current accounting system really isn't set up for how we do accounts receivable with the airlines because they have their own systems that we use and so forth. We were kind of forced to use this system back in 1997. Joan and I are used to it because we understand it, It takes board members a while maybe to go through the format that we use, but it's very crystal clear, the budget to actual, date, and then you can see what the unencumbered balances are for each of the accounts. What do you want changed, if anything? I mean, what do you want different?
So QuickBooks is gonna put it in a different format, right?
It will be. I think we provided you a copy of what that format looks like. If not, we'll send it out to you so you can kind of see. Can we do a profit and loss statement? Well, most airports don't do a profit loss statement. It doesn't really apply, but it'll be a different format, I guess, if you will. Probably the same information, but maybe in a little bit different, easier to read format. I'm just looking for your feedback because some are concerned that we don't review financials, and I think you guys get more financials than a lot of places do, but.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Having served on a number of different boards, the level of detail that's provided is probably too much, at the board level. And that's not to say that some board members won't want to look at that level of detail. Typically, boards will look towards more macro approaches, and when you're working with municipality government entities, it always gets confusing with the balance sheet and how that works and who owns what. You might want to look at how the Fargo development operates with really an operating income statement, not a full fledged accounting gap statement. And so that the board can look at revenues by department, expenses, and see how things are progressing towards budget. And so that's a function that the board has to look at and decide. But it might simplify and provide a little better discussion with a more macro approach, and so you can then compare to year to date to where you are, where they're starting to see outliers, help identify those things. So all the details there. Nobody ever deals with trial balances. Again, balance sheets are not that specific, but if you look kind of at where I said probably the easiest one is Fargo and what their operations look like. When you boil this operation down, it's a $7 to $8 million revenue with about 35 employees. It's not that complex of a financial statement. And so I think there could be a very succinct macro level, again, backed up with detail.
Okay. That's good feedback. And I've engaged John Strand as recently as last week and during visits and on phone calls. What information do you need? What information is missing from you as liaison to the commission? And it's crickets. So whenever Kimber or Sharon Odegaard before would ask for anything from us, they got it instantaneously if there was ever any questions. And as I think you've alluded to, it could be information overload. I send a lot of information out. If you like it, great. If you don't, delete it. But it's there so that you have.
Well, like I said, the level of detail to do trial balances and just about line item detail on every item. There's 3 or 4 revenue sources that should be tracked against budget. Expenses, you can either do that separately, and the other one, since there's a lot of grant revenue that comes through here and projects, you may want to do a sort of a construction project update.
Okay, that's good feedback that we can direct our efforts to give you information that you want and information that you feel is relevant. So I say for 30 plus years, this is what we've been doing. So anyway, that's good feedback. I don't have anything else on that topic, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I would just say maybe as we adapt the new system next year, starting in January, maybe we go through it a little bit more frequently every month or every other month during the meeting to try and kind of look at the differences in the different formats, or at least quarterly. So we'll just review it at the meeting and go through it so that we understand the new format. And everybody
Mr.
knows.
Chair?
Yes.
One of the questions, and I think it was answered before, is With this system, the city of Fargo, specific people at the city will have access to it at any time, right? Any of the reports and any activity throughout?
Just as they do to our banking information now.
All right.
They have access to
Good. Thank you.
all of our banking information. So,
Okay, Tammy, we're seeing your message there, so we're just talking about something else for a minute here. What else did I want to say about the financials? You know, the airport authority does not have a financial committee. The board members come together as a financial committee, and I kind of rely on you to do the due diligence and go through that kind of stuff, and point out anything that you are unhappy with or you have questions with. So that is the board functions in lieu of a separate financial committee. I mean, there's only 5 of us, plus the officers of the airport. So.
right. That was asked before, do you have a finance committee? This board has always acted as the finance committee, an HR committee, or whatever ad hoc would need be at the time, with the chair being able to appoint people to a special ad hoc committee at any time. A lot of information that would come through the board, typically I reach out to, or my predecessor reach out to the chair and the vice chair, and the director and the chair and vice chair would vet information and then bring to the full board. That's been our practice, and I don't know if that's something that can always be reviewed. It's kind of reflected in the bylaws with the officers as well. So that's what we've been following. But if you have any suggestions, that's always open for discussion.
Yeah, let's just keep talking about it as we get the new format and see if we can make a better product for everybody to discuss. Okay. Agreed? Okay, we're going to circle back to Tammy's
Mr.
comments.
Chairman, I
Yeah,
would just
sure.
comment that, we serve as committee as a whole on most things. The subset of having a finance committee, a human resources committee, is to take members of the board and intermixed into those, have staff people directly reporting to it, so it doesn't all fall on you at this. There are a finance committee and there's a finance person. They would be part of that committee, and so it's just another way of governance.
Okay. All right, moving forward, item 12, discuss the monthly, we just did that one, sorry. Discuss Ide Bailey review project.
You were provided a couple of emails that came out from Ide Bailey. The first one appears to have been prepared by the City of Fargo Finance Committee for agreed upon procedures for the Municipal Airport Authority transition. There were 9 different things with various questions and subsets that were part of that. Joan and I were party to a Zoom, I guess, with Chase Davis, who's our primary contact at Ide Bailey from the Bismarck office, and Jamie Fay from Ide Bailey, who's in the Mankato office. And then after some discussions, I think that Vice Chair Engen had maybe with the mayor, they came out with a different agreed upon procedures list that was significantly powered down on November 16th. And I spent all of last week, most of yesterday, we've uploaded over 100 documents to the Ide Bailey portal for the review, car rental leases, long-term leases, different policies that we have, FAA practices and procedures for revenue diversion and control policy, our bylaws, all of the grant assurances that we're required to follow, compliance under 5196B, FAA airport compliance for AIP 5100-38D, the FAA PFC program compliance policy of 5500.1, our fund balance policy that we've been following with the City of Fargo. There's really nothing to change there as we transition, other than probably edit it to airport authority format, but it's well over 100 documents, agendas that they've requested, all the financials that you've seen. I think we're done uploading. I don't know what else to give them. We're waiting for some clarification on another big upload of some financial data. That's going to take a significant amount of time to upload. And what I said is, here's the example of the revenue report, the expense report, and the trial balance that's emailed every month to the board members. Then I uploaded all of the emails so you can see who the email was sent to and what date and time, so that there's a tracking of yes, you are getting the financial data to review, and then the examples of what you approve at the board meetings. So I don't have a ruling on that yet, but if they want it, it's probably a day and a half or more, maybe 2 full days of uploading PDF files for them. So we are responding, and we'll get them what they need, and I don't know how one person's gonna have time to go through everything that we've uploaded. I have no idea. They're supposed to be done by the end of the day. One of the things that was on what I believe is from the city of Fargo is that throughout procedures performed, if there are high-level recommendations for improvements of controls, those are to be provided through the deliverable provided to the city. And she made it very clear that they will not do that. They're just providing the data. It's up to the city to figure out what they want. So I'm not quite sure that's something between the city and Ide Bailey to warn out, but Jamie said that they would not be doing that. They're simply reviewing the data.
Mr. Chairman, Sean, the 16th, I didn't see any pared down list.
I'm sure that we did. I'm sure that we did. I'll forward it out again.
They look very similar to me when I looked at them, unless I missed one here.
I will, I'll forward that out again here after. I'll just make a note.
Okay.
That's all I have on that.
Any discussion on this?
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
The function of an audit by a current auditor that audits the city and the airport seems a little confusing. They're the auditor that has audited the airport and the city for how many years, John? You know? It just seems a circle that I guess I'm confused that there may be an inherent conflict with that auditor auditing again. Although it does come back to the question of a certain city commissioner that wanted this audit knowing that it was already done by their city approved auditor prior and for a number of years and approved by the city. And so it's a concern.
Mr. Chairman, Rick, this is not an audit. It's for whatever reason they've gone through and said they have concerns. Maybe it's their risk management. They may be saying this is a large transaction where you're taking and moving a body from under direct coordination with the city on all financial matters to independent, so they do have a risk factor. This is not an audit, it's agreed upon procedures. You're simply telling your auditor, go look at these things and tell us if there's problems. And so,
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, or Mr. Cosgrove, it's the same auditor that was used and approved the prior audits.
correct.
That's a conflict. It should have been an outside entity doing it.
Well, I don't know that that's necessarily true. This is not an audit. This is saying these are some concerns that the city has. And they may be concerns that overlay their risk management as more and more boards are having to look at all sorts of risk mitigation. And so it would make sense that the ones that are familiar with the whole process would be the ones doing this. This is not coming in as an independent, it's not a performance audit that you've seen the state embark on a number of those. This is saying, how are these things handled? And I think the city has every right to do that from the standpoint, even with the transition, our audit rolls up into theirs. So,
If it's not a performance audit, then why was the request from the city finance committee to respond with anything that could be improved upon? Isn't that part of a performance audit?
performance audits would be top down every transaction. And these are agreed upon procedures. These
By
are
who?
the type of thing by the finance committee, right? That-
I know, but we didn't. We had no correspondence with it. It was
No,
finance.
the city has a position that their financials, the airport authority financials, roll up into the city financials. And as a risk mitigation tool, they are entering into a pretty radical departure from their standard procedures where all the financial data was done cooperatively in-house between the two entities. And I look at this as they're just saying, hey, you know, what are the things that are in place? And it helps them in their risk management. This is a big step. I mean, I would never, I don't like in any situations where you're sitting with a parent company and having financials that have to roll up into yours where you do not have the control over those subsidiaries that roll up in there. I mean, you've got to give the city some slack here. That this is a risk to them because again, even in
Perceived risk. Perceived risk.
yeah, well, but even again, if we through no fault of our own do something, it rolls up into the city financials and can cause troubles there in their audits and everything else. So I think it's just a thing that we look at and provide the information and answer the questions and see what comes out of it.
I agree, the process is important. The timing of it and the time spent by staff focusing on this when they should be focusing on getting those bullet points done for that transition.
It's a time burglar.
Yeah, if you're being polite.
You know,
The city said they were paying for this. How, are they paying for our employees' time allocating to do this?
you know, I think you can start to parse this too thinly, and they've asked for it. I think it's reasonable that they've asked for it. Maybe some of the level of detail is beyond what they've anticipated, but these are, when I read those things, those are all board functions. They're auditing the board, that the board is going to have more autonomy and more control over the operations with this change in the MOU and all the different things that you're asking for. And so they're saying on their side of it is, hey, if you're going to be functioning independent, we want to see that these things are in place. And so I don't see it as a big deal, really. I mean, it's simply...
I think timing is poor on the city's part.
You know, the whole thing, we've had a year. There's still going to be last minute fire drills and everything
And this will go
else
into
on this.
2022 with financials, we understand that. But I think their timing was poor and should have been substantially earlier in the year if this was a concern.
Okay.
Who knows? I can't
So when
speak
they
for
say
them.
that the airport is rolled up in the city's financials, what do they mean by that? I've looked at Grand Forks, that's a regional airport authority, and other than giving their financials to the entities that create them, what's the difference there? Sioux Falls gives the city of Sioux Falls a copy of their financials, but they're not rolled up into anything? What do they mean by that?
Your assets are held by the city, is what I would imagine, that it's treated as a subsidiary, and that simply is, by statute, I would believe. So you can take a look at that. But your the financials of the airport authority become a subset and rolled into the financials of the city. And so part of that is that if there were a problem here and we couldn't get an audit done timely, that could cause the city not to have a timely audit because they have to have that included.
So you're saying the city holds our assets. That would not be true. What do you mean by that? As an independent political subdivision,
I'm not sure. I would have to go back and look. But
They do
is
not.
the property titled to the city of Fargo and Municipal Airport Authority?
It's the airport authority.
It's the airport
Yeah, the
authority.
city of Fargo
Okay.
is totally cut out of that, yes.
Well, it's...
But to John's credit, we are subject to the city for bond guarantee should we do bonding. So I do understand the statement.
Yep.
But for that purpose,
From that
yes, I
standpoint.
understand that.
Yep, I understand that.
Okay. Can we move on? Kind of talking in circles here, saying the same thing over and over again. So I appreciate your discussion. It is kind of a time burglar right now with everything going on. We have some other things that we would like to dedicate our manpower to with the transition in the MOU. We'll get through this and get on to the next stuff. So anyway, thank you for all your hard work, for everybody who's put their efforts into this. So last item, airport construction and security update.
I don't have anything.
What?
Just working on closeouts and final payments for cargo and so forth. SRE building, still a punch list hanging out there?
The punch list is actually done. There one item, there was a panel that was off in the existing addition that we did, or in addition to the existing building. And the company's like out of Illinois, and so they just got here today and they're fixing that, and when it's done.
Okay. So
So
final
did
payments.
Amazon beat you, or? Shots fired. Just kidding.
Okay.
Anything else, Sean?
So Artworks is going to have 5 to 6 dates starting here in the next few weeks with our commitment with the Arts Partnership with some performers. They also forwarded, I think, 5 or 6 other groups that want to perform here at the airport, and we'll work with them to find them a date. From Fargo North to the Symphony to some Norwegian group. We'll get that all taken care of. October numbers. October of 2021 was our second busiest October on record. We are within 2.74% of our 2019 record pace, so it's we're doing fairly well with our boardings yet. A lot of attention from media yesterday on just the normal Thanksgiving holiday travel rush. Vax mandate, the TSA deadline was yesterday, and I've heard nothing in terms of enforcement or employees let go or anything. We've heard nothing about the General Services Administration designation of airports as airport or federal contractors. They've gone radio silent on us, so I guess we're waiting to see what vax mandate things may come upon us. So if I hear anything, we'll definitely let you know. That's all that I have.
One last thing for me, General L. Palmer, Brigadier General L. Palmer, was a very, very large figure in North Dakota aviation. He passed away last Tuesday. He was a professor up at UND. He was a director of flight operations for a long time. Professor of mine, personal friend of mine. He was also a brigadier general in the Air National Guard. Titan in North Dakota aviation community. So his funeral today will be at in Grand Forks at 2 o'clock. So just want to wish his family all the heartfelt sympathies for his loss. So anything else that anybody like to chat about? Okay, meeting adjourned. Thanks.